Hi guys, it's Laura from Green Tree. I am here with this month's Spice of the Month, which is Za'atar. So Za'atar is actually a blend. I believe we're going to be covering a blend next month as well. I'm just going to show you, see if we can get that to focus up. There are quite a few different things going on inside this jar. We're going to get a little bit into those in a minute. First, I'll say that Za'atar is the most popular in the Middle East and Mediterranean. That's where you're going to find this a lot. You'll see that in some of the food pairings that I'm going to suggest too, that those are the ingredients that are going to pop up over and over again, are some of those Middle Eastern and Mediterranean ingredients. As I said, the type of Za'atar we're talking about is a blend, but Za'atar is also a word for an individual herb. Most of the time, in this part of the country, you're going to see the blend rather than the herb though, so that's what we're going to focus on. Now, Za'atar is a bit like curry in that every mixture is a little different. There are regional variations, but there's also like household to household variations. Everybody sort of has their own way of approaching it. So the one that we are going to talk about today, I'm going to read off the list so I get it exactly right, contains hyssop, sesame seeds, sumac berries, thyme, and sea salt. So you're pretty much always going to see thyme and sea salt and sesame seeds in these blends, but hyssop and sumac are also very common ingredients. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any sumac berries here to show you, but they give one of the most distinctive flavors in this particular Za'atar blend. Sumac, it's kind of a shrub or a bush that gets these bright red berries on it, which are dried and used as a seasoning. When you smell the Za'atar, which I recommend, whenever you're going to use an herb or a spice or a blend that you haven't used before, just kind of take a deep smell of it and get an idea of what the overall elements are. But there's almost a fruity, tangy smell to it, and that comes from the sumac. There's also like a strong herbal element from the thyme, which, and sometimes it's oregano in different blends, but there will be one of those really herbaceous green herbs in there. One of the ones that has that smell that's not exactly medicinal, but strong. It's not just green like grass. There's another element to it. Describing smells is tricky, so I hope you guys smell it on your own too. So yes, thyme is one of the things that's going to be in it. Oh, sorry, that's hyssop. Thyme. This is thyme from my garden, so you can see it still has a lot of little stems in it. But thyme has these little tiny green leaves that pack a really strong, flavorful wallop. They're the ones that have that green, medicinal, intense flavor to them. You can actually, I guess in some places they brew Za'atar like tea almost, and having these strong green herbs in it is part of the reason that you can do that. Hyssop is the other one that you'll see. Yes, this is an old pickle jar or olive jar. Yes, it's an olive jar. I have a tendency to reuse jars. Hyssop has these little sort of purpley pink flowers on them. I don't know how well it picks up on the camera, but it's not just green. There's a little bit of that, those little blossoms in there, and that'll give it part of its color as well. I would describe it as being more sweet like clover in terms of the smell, which also I think contributes to the fruitiness of this particular Za'atar blend when it comes to the smell. Then the other thing that I said you're always going to see in these Za'atar blends is sesame seeds. Now this particular one does not have toasted sesame seeds, but one of the recipes that I'm going to give you involves baking something in the oven, and it will give that toasty flavor. So when the sesame seeds are toasted especially, it gives it like a nutty kind of a taste to it. And these are just little sesame seeds like you would see on the top of a burger. They do have the hull, the outer hard hull removed. If you were going to make it yourself, don't use the ones with the hull on. They're kind of crunchy and hard, and it'll be a contrast you probably wouldn't like in the blend. So you want these ones with the little hull removed. If you're making it yourself, definitely take a little extra time and toast them. But as I said, with this particular blend, we're going to be cooking it sometimes when we use it, and that'll give that toasty flavor. So the different ways to use Za'atar. There are a ton. I'm really only going to give you one thing in the post if you go check it out that is really a recipe with actual measurements. Mostly I'm going to give you some suggestions on how to use it. Now, the first way that I ever had Za'atar, a friend of mine from Saudi Arabia gave it to me this way, and this is probably the most common way that you'll see it eaten. Is you dip a piece of pita. So I have some white pita here that I got at the co-op. You dip a piece of pita in olive oil and dip it in Za'atar, and you eat it, and it's really good that way. Any extra virgin olive oil will work. Now, as a person who frequently sits at a desk or on a couch while eating and not always at a table, where I don't always have the most stable surface for a whole dish of olive oil, what I have a tendency to do is to drizzle this over the top of the pita and then sprinkle a really generous portion of Za'atar over the top, cut it into pieces, and set it on my plate that way. Just because then I don't have to worry about spilling the olive oil. And when I say like a pinch of this, it's probably somewhere between a half teaspoon and a teaspoon per pita that I end up using. So I'll take this, put it on a flat surface, usually a cutting board, drizzle the olive oil over the top, sprinkle a really generous amount of Za'atar so you can really see it on there, over the top of the pita, cut it into a couple chunks and set it on the plate. Yes, you're still getting olive oil on your fingers if you're enjoying it, which you probably will. But it's a lot less messy than actually dipping it. If you are sitting at a table and you're having like a proper sit down meal, dipping it and then sprinkling or dipping in the Za'atar is like the traditional way. That's the way to go. If you want to, you could take an extra step and warm your pita up in a pan first, which is nice. I've been eating it a lot for breakfast, and so I tend to just grab it cold, have it with like some fruit and a protein, and that's a really good combo. So that's probably my favorite way, to just put it on the pita. You can also put it on hummus. You can like sprinkle it over the top of your hummus before you dip things in it, or yogurt. I've done it with yogurt as well. A really thick yogurt, you can actually mix that and make it like a dip. Let's see, you can put it on, I've done it on fish. Some people will put it on their eggs. I mean, really any kind of protein. People use it as rubs on chicken and lamb. You can put it on tofu or pumfu and bake that or saute that in a pan, and that will work as well. You can, let's see, oh, you can put it on roasted veggies. That's a really nice thing to do. So then you're still combining with the olive oil. The flavors work quite well together. You can toss your veggies in olive oil and Za'atar, throw them in the oven and bake them. You could do a blend of like veggies and beans, like cauliflower and chickpeas would be a good combination. Or you can just go with the classic roasted potatoes. The recipe that I will give you is for like a little flatbread that actually includes feta cheese and greens and almonds, because then you're getting even more of that toasted nutty flavor than from just the sesame seeds that are in this. You can see the little white sesame seeds hiding in there. But bringing out that toasted nutty flavor is a really good combo. Let's see, what else can you do with these? I would also suggest, honestly, just putting it into any other kind of a dip, like a sour cream. You can mix it with tahini. You can use it as a spread that way. And it can be really good with, if you're baking bread, or even like something like croissants. You could spritz a little bit of olive oil onto the croissant dough and put the Za'atar in between and then roll it up and bake it. It pairs really well with warm bread. So there's quite a few different ideas for you to try in terms of Za'atar. Like I said, it's a really surprisingly aromatic for something that looks not a whole lot different from something like an Italian seasoning when you just sort of glance at it. But it just that tangy, interesting kind of kick from the sumac, the nuttiness from the sesame. You can tell it's making me a little bit hungry, even though I just had some with my breakfast. Yeah, it's really versatile. It's interesting. I think that you should definitely give it a try in a few different ways. And I have a tendency really not to measure it much. If you can really see a nice distribution of Za'atar on the thing that you put it on, there's probably enough. You don't have to go light with this one. It's a nice pungent flavor and you can use a lot of it at once. So it's not spicy at all, so don't worry about overdoing it. The amount of salt in it is also not super high. It's just a touch of salt, so you don't really have to worry that when you're using this particular blend that you'll be over salting the food. You could always add more salt separately if you wanted to, but I think you'll find that the flavor oomph that this gives is probably enough on its own. So check out the post for kind of a list of ways that you might use this. I hope that you enjoyed this little segment on Za'atar. I'd love to hear if you enjoy it when you try it. And stay tuned for next month, which I believe will be another spice blend. I think we're doing curry. All right, you guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. Have fun cooking. I'll see you next time.